have some very good news for you. I'm the last speaker. And I won't speak very long. I'm not here as a political person. I have no political influence. I'm here as someone who experienced religious persecution firsthand. I spent 2 years in a Turkish prison because of my faith. And as a former prisoner, I'm grateful for what people like you do, especially in the area of religious freedom. And in fact, there are some people here who are involved in advocacy for my release. And I'm grateful for that. And it's so encouraging to see so many of you who are standing for values in the public arena. I know that this is not easy, and we keep seeing how God has people in all kinds of places. So I just want to encourage you in this direction. People unite around all kinds of things, but to do so around, I say, Judeo-Christian values, it is a good, it is a right pursuit. And I'm especially interested in the religious freedom side of this because without this, it is very difficult to promote all of the values that have a religious underpinning, the very values that you're emphasizing in this gathering. If we don't have religious freedom, then you will not be able to implement a lot of the things that you were talking about here. I think many people see, especially after hearing Paul talk, that these values, especially religious freedom, are under pressure. But I think that actually most people underestimate the danger in the West. I think there's many people think all things will be well. They will work out. They're just cycles, political cycles that we go through. And when political conservatives make gains, then there's a lot of optimism. And I understand that. But I think we also need to be clear-minded and clear-eyed and sober-minded about the direction that the West is going. I have one small example. In 2018, there was a ministerial for religious freedom put on by the U.S. State Department. There were a number of countries that participated in Washington, D.C. So it was a government-hosted function. And my daughter, 20 years old at that time, spoke at that ministerial about my case. I was at that time a prisoner in Turkey. A year later, in 2019, I spoke at the ministerial. I had been released by that time, partly by some of the pressure put on there. And there were over 100 countries who sent their foreign minister or an ambassador to this gathering to emphasize religious freedom. I'm sure that not all of them were really on board for religious freedom, but there was momentum building for this. 2019, so I was there, I spoke there. The next year, COVID canceled things. The year after that, 2021, it was canceled. Why was it canceled? There's momentum. Over 100 countries are already participating at a very high level. Why would you cancel that? Well, it's because religious freedom is not an especially high priority. Right now, it's for this current administration, it is not. So in the past, there's been a degree of respect for religious freedom from the right and the left, politically. It was just seen as part of human rights. But I think this is changing, and is changing very quickly. Where religious freedom and belief intersects with LGBT, where it intersects with gender ideology, then priority is given to LGBT, and religious freedom loses. Wherever they clash, religious freedom and LGBT, religious freedom is not prioritized any longer. Now, this isn't only political. In fact, it's primarily, I think, a matter of culture. So, as I speak about the United States as an American citizen, I think of the commanding heights of American culture. You have arts, media, entertainment, professional sports, big tech, big business, schools and universities, government bureaucracy, even the military. They're led by people who are increasingly hostile to traditional Christianity. Then I look at the coming generations, at the millennial generation, at what is called Gen Z also. They have very different values from the previous generations. So this is the future. This is what's coming. And speaking as a follower of Jesus Christ, I expect increasing suppression of speech, marginalization, canceling, deplatforming, and social and economic pressure. This is the direction the U.S. is heading. It's the direction Western Europe is heading as well. One of the things for my imprisonment is I had to learn to stand under tremendous pressure, even in my weakness and brokenness. And I think that God was preparing me, learning how to stand under the pressure. I had to learn a number of things, and that some of these things are transferable. And actually what I spend a lot of time doing is speaking about how to prepare to stand in difficult times, the difficult times that I think are coming in the West for people of faith. So I think the cause of religious freedom is suffering in the West. And this is going to have very negative consequences around the world because the West has led in religious freedom. It's one that has pushed it in many other areas. And I think that we're speeding toward a darker and more difficult time. And I think countries from the global South, I'm glad to see some Africans represented here, African countries, lots of Latin Americans. What you do to protect and to promote Christian values is going to become increasingly important. I think leadership is going to be passing more and more to the global South in these areas if you will take that up. I want to mention Hungary, the place of Hungary. My wife and I are very grateful to be Hungarian citizens. And so I thank Hungary for establishing a department to deal with religious persecution of Christians. In fact, if you go to religious freedom events, it's often the Hungarians who most clearly talk about persecution of Christians. And I've heard Tristan do this. I've also heard the foreign minister, Szijjártó, do this and speak in the most powerful ways about Christian persecution. You don't really hear other governments doing this, so I really want to praise them for this and thank them. I also, yes. I am also grateful to them for protecting Christian values without apology. And thank you for hosting the summit. And I say to Hungary, brace yourself for even more opposition. They're already despised in many places. There's going to be more of this. But also embrace the role of being an example to others. And we need global champions of this message, and Hungary is doing this. So I believe God is going to bless Hungary because it is standing for things that are important to God's heart. So you've talked about the importance of linking together, and especially as we face more difficult circumstances, as governments and culture becomes more hostile to people of faith, to Christians, I think these intentional coalitions and the work that you do will be all the more necessary. It's also going to be more difficult and more costly on a personal level to those of you who are involved in these things. I think conditions will become more difficult before they become better. So I want to encourage you to strengthen your resolve now so that you will stand strong as this pressure increases. But I also want to encourage hope. I am pessimistic, somewhat pessimistic about the future of North America and of Western Europe. But I am very optimistic about the kingdom of God and about the people of God. Think of want to end by mentioning the movie Lord of the Rings. And there's this small band of people and other creatures who come together against impossible odds. They have these huge hordes that are coming to attack them, and there's no possible way that they can win. But they choose to fight anyway, not because they think they're going to win, but because it's the right thing to do. And so I think we have the same choice. We fight not because we're guaranteed to win every battle, we won't, but because it's the right thing to do. And for me as a follower of Jesus Christ, the good news is that Jesus does win in the end. So may God give each one of you divine strategies. May He make your assignments clear. And I bless you in the name of my King, Jesus Christ.